bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
What up, what up, what up? Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. That's right. Today's Wednesday, November 4th. 309 days into the new year, just 56 days left. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? That's right. Last night was medicated night. Tonight, it's clean and sober. Tonight, we have very special guest, Bob Fletcher. One of the seriously most requested guests here. Lynn Lewis has been shouting out for him forever. We'll be doing Nibiru and Planet X tonight. Tomorrow night, Doug Taylor and Atlantis. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. We'll try to get to some calls later on tonight. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Phone lines are lighting up. I don't know why people are calling in right now. I have no clue. And if you can hear me, phone lines are closed. So there you go. I want to remind everybody, Q&A week, November 30th through December 3rd. That's going to be on Monday, November 30th, Vahan Setyan. Tuesday, Michael Lee Hill. Wednesday will be Leo Zagami. And Thursday, some guy named Jimmy Church. And it's going to be cool. Q&A week, really looking forward to it. And I was speaking with a variety of people today about some upcoming events, and we were talking about Alien Snowfest and Conscious Life, and we were flipping out because I looked, today's the 4th of November. Alien Snowfest, that's it. It's November, December, January, boom. I mean, it's going to be on us really quick, and the week after that is the Conscious Life Expo. And I was going through the guest with the conversations I was having today about the speakers at both of these conferences, as well as Contact in the Desert. And these are 3 stellar West Coast events, and not quite back to back, but almost there. An Alien Snowfest, that's February 5th through the 7th. And I know I mention it every night on the show, but the reason I do is because this is in our backyard. It's right here in Big Bear, California. And the cool thing about Alien Snowfest is the snow. It's Big Bear. And if you've ever wanted to come out to California and check out what California is about, you need to come out to Alien Snowfest, because you're going to wing it into Ontario Airport, or you're going to drive in, but wing it into Ontario Airport, jump in your rent-a-car, literally head up the freeway, and you go from the high desert, Ontario, or the low desert, whatever you want to call it, and then you're in 10 feet of snow in like 30 minutes. It's crazy, or less. And you will go from, really nice weather to being pulled over by the highway patrol telling you to put on your snow chains. How cool is that? You've got to experience it. Big Bear is an incredible town. And that time of year is when you want to be there. So anyway, Alien Snowfest is February 5th through the 7th. And then right after that is the Conscious Life Expo 2 weeks later, which is at the LAX Hilton. And again, just a stellar lineup there. And at Conscious Life, we will be doing Fade to Black. We're going to actually broadcast the show live that Friday night. And then Saturday morning, after the broadcast Saturday morning, I have the honor of hosting the Ancient Aliens panel. You really want to come out. Now, everybody is speaking there. Will Koch, Sean Stone, Dean Ryan, Linda Moulton Howe, William Henry, Mike Barrett, Jason Martell, Serena Wright Taylor, Doug Taylor, who's going to be on the show tomorrow night. He'll be speaking there. Robert Perala, 40 other speakers. And it's a really good combination of both consciousness and ufology, some lost civilization stuff, and it's really cool. It is a great time at the LAX Hilton. But what was I going to say? There was a connection between the two, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway, Conscious Life is just one of those events where you go, and it's I know what I was going to say. At Conscious Life, there are at the LAX Hilton multiple rooms and banquet halls. It's huge, and it's multi-level, and you can go and hang out and see everybody that you want to see. It's really cool, and to have that many, literally thousands of people at one spot thinking the same, it's great. So that'll be February 19th through the 22nd. And and George Norrie is going to be having his coast to coast meet and greet at the Conscious Life Expo too as well. Always a cool event. All right, so let's get the show cracking. Yes, tonight is clean and sober night. I was just posting in Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, by the way, at JChurchRadio. Simple enough. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. And I was posting in there. After that 2-day binge that I had to go through to fight off the pain of those stones, last night, although a fun show, and I know it was great, 2 stellar guests, Annie Jacobson, Foster Gamble, I don't remember the show. I was thinking about that. It's one of those, it was like a fog. Man, so tonight is clean and sober night. And let's get this show cracking. Oh, it feels good to be back. Literally, my side still feels like, I just posted this in Twitter. I still feel like I was punched by Mike Tyson. It's that post-op pain. It's just like, wow. But compared to what I went through Sunday and Monday and half of yesterday, I feel like $1 million. Oh, it feels so good. And I'm here with all of you. Let's get the show cracking. Today, one of my favorites, his birthday is today, Matthew McConaughey. And he is 46. There are very few actors that have come along in our generation that have made the influence and impact on me. I think he is one of the best. But that being said, his best is still his first. He's 46 years old today. Dazed and Confused. That's Matthew McConaughey. Also today, Ralph Macchio is 54. And Ralph makes the list. He makes the list. Now, I know everybody, when they think of Ralph Macchio, they think of The Karate Kid. But that wasn't his best either, was it? No. It's My Cousin Vinny. But you knew that. Our dead guy's birthday today is Wayne Static. 1965 to 2014. Died at the age of 48. Yes, he was the lead singer, guitarist, keyboardist, sequencer for the band Static X. A very notable vocal style. I dug Static X. All versions of the band. And he just had a style. He had a thing, and he had pretty cool hair too, but he had a thing about him. And I just like Static X, and I like Wayne, and I thought he was a tremendous personality on and off the stage. He died last year, nearly a year ago, on November 1st, 2014, 3 days before his 49th birthday, which is today, the 4th. It was reported that he had took, at the time, half of an oxycodone pill as well as alcohol before going to bed, and he was found, later deceased. Static's family later issued a statement stating that rumors of his death being drug-related were false. You remember all of that, saying that he had stopped using drugs in 2009. But an autopsy later confirmed that he died of multiple drug toxicity consisting of oxycodone, hydromorphone, alprazolam, and alcohol. Sad. He was so respected in the music industry, and when he died, to see how many people came out and poured into the post all around the industry. It was just not a cool day. Static X. Hey, Bob, there you go. Look at that. That's my man right there, Wayne Static. That's going to get a retweet. It's going to get a retweet every time. Don't you love it? This show, we can talk about Class A drugs, Wayne Static, and Nibiru all in one night. I'll tell you what, after the 2 days that I had with painkillers, those things are no joke, man. And you think about what Wayne did, and sometimes, I remember the comments about, and I talk about, when I talk about these famous rock stars, these guys, these talented guys that go and just end it all with pills and drugs, and then they take the, I don't know what the pain is or what it is in their lives that they have to do that, but what they're doing is they're taking themselves away from us too, as well. And that's what hurts. And I think if any of them could take it back, they wouldn't do it. Anyway, enough of that. And that's why I talk about it so much on the show. So there you go. Now, Twitter. I wanted to do this a couple of nights ago, but I thought about it today. And after I was watching Static X videos all day today, preparing for the show. Man, Wayne Static was just the man. Anyway, so I was thinking, I don't know if I've ever done this on Twitter, going into the commercial. I want to know. I'm going to feel out you Fadernauts right now. I'm going to feel out the audience. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag F2B for your answer to this Twitter question. Who is the greatest metal guitar player of all time? Who is the baddest metal guitar player of all time? All right? That's what I want to see in Twitter. I'm going into this commercial break. In this commercial break, I want to see Twitter light up. Who is the baddest metal guitar player in the history of rock and roll? Light it up, Fadernauts. Tonight, Bob Fletcher right here. Buckle up. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride tonight. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, J Church Radio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
I love this audience. Love them. Every one of you. Zach Wilde, Dimebag Darrell. Dew Sky just comes in with Tony Iommi and Randy Rhoads. It's a tie. Can't argue that. Dave Mustaine came up a couple of times. And I did see Peter Frampton and John Denver. Dimebag. Cemetery Gates. Yeah, it's a tough. It's really tough because you have the modern side, with you have the really ultra modern side with guys like John Five is just absolutely incredible. But Dimebag and Zach Wilde that kind of led the last generation through, and then when you take a step back behind that with Randy and Tony. You see that too as well, but there are so many greats, and it's really hard to ignore. Nobody did post. I'm kind of surprised. Nobody got into Glenn Tipton. What's wrong with Glenn Tipton? That dude is about as metal gets. But Randy Rhoads popped up again. You can't really. John Denver sticking with that. Adrian Smith is a slayer. All three of those guys actually are pretty good. Okay. I'm back. On this day in history, 1922, big day. The entrance to King Tut's tomb was discovered. That's right. Howard Carter and his workmen discover a step right in the Valley of the Kings. And they're like, wow, that's going somewhere. And the next thing you know, they find the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Fader fact. There was a third Apple founder. Yes, there was. His name, Ronald Wayne. And he sold his 10% stake. Check this. His 10% stake for $800 in 1976. He later accepted $1,500 cash to forfeit any claims against Apple. Wayne retired to a Pahrump, Nevada mobile home park, selling stamps and rare coins, and he never owned an Apple product. That, my friends, is a Fader fact. All of the news that you know nothing about. Yeah, you can look up Ronald Wayne. Famous story. I mean, he lived a good life and everything, but 10% of Apple today, what is that worth? What is that worth? What is it? Is it $100 billion, $200 billion, 10% stake? Think about that for a second. Wow. But I'm sure he had a reason. He needed that $800. Sometimes you need the $800. And in 76, it was a good chunk of money. And maybe he needed to. Wow. All of the news that you know nothing about. This was breaking all day today, so I'm sure you've heard some of this. The latest U.S. intelligence is now suggesting that the crash of Metrojet Flight 9268 was most likely caused by a bomb planted on the plane by ISIS. A U.S. official said today that the intelligence regarding ISIS is in part based on monitoring of the internal messages of the terrorist group, both on and off the normal internet, going into the dark net. Yes, they are going there. Those messages are separate from public ISIS claims of the responsibility. Now, I'm sure that Bob Fletcher has got some insight on this. We'll be talking to Bob about this. But something is fishy. This just stinks. It just smells. Why does it smell? Russia does their thing in Syria. A couple of weeks later, a plane just drops out of the sky, and it happens to be a Russian plane. In the Sinai, by all measures, ISIS-occupied territory. At that, something is funky. Okay, this is not a coincidence. We will get to the bottom of this. But is it some kind of deception on the United States part, and Britain is stepping in to just suck in Russia and to just get Putin all wound up? Is it that? 224 people had to die because of this? I'm not too sure what is going on, but it stinks. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has a new take on the death to America. He was quoted yesterday in a speech in Iran with this gem, and I'm quoting here. The slogan, Death to America, is backed by reason and wisdom. And it goes without saying that the slogan does not mean death to the American nation. This slogan means death to the U.S. policies, death to arrogance, end quote. And I am moving on. A small experimental rail-launched rocket failed its debut flight today, destroying 13 small research satellites. The 67-foot-tall Super Stripey rocket lifted off at 10:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today from the Pacific Missile Range Facility on Kauai, Hawaii. The 31-ton rocket began falling from the sky less than a minute later. The Air Force issued a statement saying that the mission, known as ORS-4, had failed. The accident claimed a 122-pound University of Hawaii satellite outfitted with hyperspectral imager to test new technologies for observing Earth in orbit. Also on board were 12 tiny NASA-backed CubeSats, including 8-member Edison demonstration of small-sat networks and the PrintSat that was mostly manufactured on 3D printers. Well, as we know, today's the anniversary of King Tut's tomb, and it was also announced today that the investigation of King Tut's tomb to find the secret chambers will begin tomorrow and last through Friday, Egypt's Minister of Antiquity announced today. A team from Cairo University's Faculty of Engineering and Paris-based organization Heritage, Innovation, and Preservation will investigate the tomb using infrared thermography. The search follows the claim by Nicholas Reeves, I've been talking about it for a couple of months now, pointing to the presence of 2 still unexplored chambers behind the western and northern walls of the tomb. According to Reeves, one of the chambers contains the remains and possibly the intact grave goods of Nefertiti, the wife of Akhenaten, King Tut's pops. On October 23rd, on the margins of the UN General Assembly, The member states of the Collective Security Treaty Organization adopted a joint statement in support of the draft treaty on the prevention of placement of weapons in outer space, threat, or use of force against outer space objects. Russia and its partners share the concern over the risk of arms race in outer space and believe that it can only be addressed by the means of legally binding instruments based on the current draft at the United Nations. Preventing the deployment of weapons in outer space remains one of the key objectives of Russian diplomacy. Right. Okay? Russia says there's no weapons in outer space. They don't want us to do it either. They don't want China to do it. But let me tell you something. Today, right now, if things jump off, you're going to see every satellite shot right out of orbit by weapons that aren't supposed to be there. So quit. Please. No weapons in outer space. You read something like that. Again, flip it over 180 degrees. Right? China and Russia and the 129 signers in the United Nations General Assembly of this resolution tells me that every satellite is armed. In an Instagram post today, NASA announced it is looking for a new batch of astronauts and explained the application process. Did you see this? I'm quoting here. It says, from pilots to engineers to scientists and medical doctors, we select qualified astronaut candidates from a diverse pool of U.S. citizens with a wide variety of backgrounds, end quote. That was an Instagram. Then NASA went to Twitter and did it all over again. NASA says they'll be accepting applications on December 14th and will take submissions through mid-February. The agency said it plans to announce the new astronaut candidates in mid-2017. It added that it's calling for astronauts, are you ready, for our journey to Mars. What they left off was the one-way ticket part. That part was, left off. This is Fade to Black. Let's get out of here. Let's get Bob Fletcher in here. I'm excited. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Doug Taylor will be right here on an all-Atlantis kind of evening on Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back after this short break with Bob Fletcher. Stay right there.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network, KGRA, The Planet. Tonight, we have very special guest Bob Fletcher is with us. We'll be discussing Nibiru and Planet X and other current events. We'll get to all of that. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Doug Taylor will be with us, and it will be a full evening of Atlantis. Bob Fletcher owned a toy factory in Marietta, Georgia, near Lockheed Dobbins Air Force Base in 1985. In order to expand his business, he merged with a partner, Gary Best. Later, he found Best was a high-ranking covert intelligence agent who intended to use the toy company for arms dealing. Following his ousting from the toy company, Fletcher eventually wound up in Knoxon, Montana, with a small group of people who began the Militia of Montana. This affiliation put him on numerous TV talk shows and before a U.S. Senate investigation committee targeting U.S. militia activity in 1995. A comment by Fletcher about the scientific ability to control the weather created a storm of attempted debunking by authorities. Since then, he has turned his attention to the return of Planet X, Nibiru, and the latest evidence for the rogue Planet X, and how underground cities and hideouts have been developed for the elite to seek refuge. I would like to welcome, for the first time to Fade to Black, Mr. Bob Fletcher. Bob, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm hanging in there, as they say, looking at the world from an old man's point of view. At this point in time, been chasing bad guys in Washington for 30 years. And I don't know, that's almost like chasing your tail, I think.
Hey, Bob, I was just watching Twitter, and somebody just posted a picture of you in front of the Senate subcommittee, on C-SPAN. And,
sure.
And I got to say, you were a pretty good, young, dapper fellow. I didn't realize it was that long ago. When was that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I merged my toy company in about 83, 84, around that period of time, maybe 85, 84, 85, that period of time. And, and I found out that the fellow that I was merging with, who owned a bunch of companies, was pretty well off, but found out all those companies were covert front operations for Central Intelligence, and he was basically one of the primary suppliers of weapons, is the way they like to phrase it, for all of these covert wars all over the place. And, of course, at that time, which was 85, 86, leading into what was the Iran-Contra mess, and he wanted to, I merged my company, never was paid properly for it. He ripped me off for about whatever, at that time, at least $250,000. But the point was, I started having these military generals coming in and out of my office, et cetera, and phone calls. This guy on the telephone speaking Vietnamese and Chinese and, all these outrageous things, moving Hellfire missiles through my toy company. Those are the same missiles they use today off of these drones to blow people up in the middle of the desert. Anyhow, it was mind-boggling for me. I was a toy manufacturer,
Right.
and then I was James Bond. You know,
Yeah, well,
they wanted me to travel overseas and carry information, all that. But to answer your question, I'm sorry I got off on that there. But
That's all right.
it was basically, let's see, it was 85, 87 was when I was before. That was when I testified in the Iran-Contra inquiries. It was 95 when you're talking about speaking before the Senate Intelligence Committee. That was when they were trying to make the Patriot militia groups look like a bunch of terrorist wackos, when in reality it was Americans starting to wake up and realizing at least some of what was going on. I had no idea how deep and corrupted and how far it would end up going. And I because of testifying with the Contra thing and then doing the Intelligence Committee later on, during that period of time through the late 80s and through the 90s, all these guys that carry out this covert operations and all the rest of that at the highest level of top secret junk, and doing all the things that they do, they always interfaced. In other words, it would be 2 or 3 guys from one group, and then a year or so later, a congressman or a senator would call me and say, hey, we're looking into drug smuggling connected into the government offices. Do you know anything about this guy and that guy? And I would say, oh, well, sure, And I was even hired by Manuel Noriega's attorneys to do a report on that, and I was involved with at least 6 of the most important covert intelligence investigations for the last 20 years. One way or another, I ended up getting dragged into it. So, and I met and crossed paths with not only the senators and the congressmen, et cetera. Few of them were good. Most of the good ones are not there for very long. But anyhow, that was the upshot of it. I ended up getting completely up to my neck in, like I said, James Bond kind of activities, which I was certainly not originally cut out to do. But
well, I've been following you for what seems like forever, and I've always, now that I've got the opportunity to have you on the show, one of the questions that begs to be asked, before all of this happened, did you have any interest in the corruption or the dark side of Washington, D.C., or were you just, a corporate guy, just...
Well, I'll tell you, I've always been, that's a good terminology, a corporate guy, so to speak, although it's been extraordinarily interesting before I got into the rest of this, which is really interesting, crazy stuff. I was in the music business professionally in that for many years as a younger person. When I was 28 years old, I was the promotion manager for MCA Records.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I introduced Elton John to the United States, was on the road with a rock group called The Who, and was literally into that for several years. I had my own recording company. I had several things I had recorded, produced myself on my own label that were top 100 records, et cetera, et cetera. So I was in the music business, which of course was tremendously exciting as a young man, and I was at the executive level. I had managed the entire Southeast USA for MCA Records, and of course we had 60% of everything that was happening at that time.
Right.
And so it was pretty, that was an amazing part. But what happened actually, I found this out later on because I tried to figure out why I was targeted by this intelligence group of arms suppliers, Gary Best and a company called Vista that he oversaw, and the generals that he was directly involved with were the guys that ran the Vietnam War. and were involved with a lot of all the covert operations in the Vietnam War. And I figured out what it was, and it was going back to a word, something that this Gary Best character said to me after a couple of months of being under the same roof and being involved with listening to some of the activities there. I had been involved with an international consulting business. It was my own business. My partner was literally from Monrovia, Liberia at that time, and this was in the 80s, in the earlier 80s, like 1980, 81 period of time. And he had his offices literally in the embassy at the Liberian embassy in Washington, D.C., and we had major contracts that we had negotiated with the government of Liberia at that period of time, and unfortunately that was blown apart, so to speak, by having that nation overthrown by one of the military officers. Now, Liberia had never had that kind of a problem in 100 years, but I signed contracts with the government, and they end up killing everybody that was running the government, so that was kind of a negative thing. But anyhow, the bottom line was that apparently this Gary Best had found out about that or knew about it. So that was why he had ended up approaching me to merge my company, because he thought that I would be up for going into West Africa and traveling around different countries, making a ton of money, which they guaranteed me really big bucks. And the bottom line was I would be covertly going in, traveling and taking information, if you will, over to contacts in these different countries and bringing the information back, pretty much an informational courier. And that was the idea. And I found out that the intelligence community, including the Central Intelligence and the national security agencies, etc., they subcontract profusely with people like Gary Best, and these are the guys like the types of situations, for example, what they refer to as the mechanics that they would contact. For example, the assassination of Kennedy. That would have been was put together by all these intelligence covert operatives assassinating Kennedy.
Sure.
And these are people that do it on an ongoing basis. So when they need, they're going to start trouble in some part of the world, whatever it is, and they say we need so-and-so is going to try to overthrow this country, and we want to assist the rebels. And so they would call Gary Best and the military generals at that time, who was General Richard Secord, General Heine Adderholt, and General John Singlaub, again, the guys at that time that had previously done all of the Vietnam activity.
All the players.
They ran the Air America,
right?
The Air America that people are familiar with from the Mel Gibson motion picture. But anyhow, it's a small group, a reasonably small group of guys, and when the intelligence community decides they want to help somebody overthrow a country, they say, hey, we need helicopters and missiles and covert operatives to go in, and we need to go in and have some guys go and blow something up and make it look like it was somebody else doing the activity, those false flag operations. And it's always, again, comes back to being a small group of people, and they crisscross all the time, interfacing with each other. But anyhow, that was what happened. To answer your question, no, I had no interest in politics at all or any of that crazy stuff. I was an entrepreneur. I had invented a toy after closing down my the trade company we had. Closed that down, and I had an idea for a toy, and I started making it in my basement, the old American dream.
Right.
Started in my basement and ended up having a 7,000 square foot brand new facility in Marietta, manufacturing more of these little fur toys that I could manage. I mean, it was really doing very well. There was television stories had been done about us and all that. And lo and behold, I crossed paths with a Central Intelligence arms operation, and I got in.
To go from the music business, the toy manufacturing, to testifying in front of, the Senate and Congress on Iran-Contra and later on militia, that is a wild ride of a nightmare.
Well, it really is, and I'll tell you what. And I've got a book that's like 98% done, and I don't know if I'll ever finish it and get it published. Shame on me, but I've been so busy. And I could have had it finished 20 years ago, to be honest with you, but then things kept going, and I ended up also being just so busy and pursuing so many different things. That I've never. Well, the book is like 98% done, laying there. But a few years ago, while living in Los Angeles, a friend of mine had taken a rough draft of it and gave it to Emilio Estevez there in Los Angeles. Dropped off this rough copy of it, and for a year, unknown to myself, Emilio was trying to contact me and was pulling his hair out. He finally got a hold of me while I was there in L.A., and he had read it, and he said, "This is the greatest thing I've read in 5 years."
Right.
He said, literally, and he said, "I want to do the movie. I'm going to play myself, in the lead role. I've already talked to Sean Penn about it, and he's freaked out. This is the fantastic blah, 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 blah." And I said, well, okay, great, let's do it. And he said, "I'm finishing up a thing I'm doing now, and I'll be back in 2 months into L.A., and we'll sit down, we'll have put together paperwork." And then, lo and behold, when I sent him the last paragraph, so to speak, the last few pages of it, all of a sudden he didn't want to do anything. And what was funny about it, or I realized later on what had happened, the last section of it, let's say the last 20% of the book, was in reference to all the corruption with the Clintons. And, of course, Emilio Estevez's father is Martin Sheen.
Right.
And he happens to be, regular drinking buddies with Bill Clinton.
Right.
So that was the end of that. It died, it died on the vine. But otherwise, Emilio was going to do my life story. And it's when I look at it back myself, it's overwhelming. It was really something, and it's still going.
Well, take me back to that period before we get to this break. Was it just like got to the point where you didn't trust anybody? I mean, there was people coming in and out of your life that not only covert and CIA and military establishment and the shipping of arms. It just must have been insane.
Well, it really was, and I was dealing with. I testified to the FBI real early on this thing, and then of course the Contra thing broke. I was dragged in, and they sent in their investigators to interview me on the Iran-Contra crap. But see, the investigators were even totally corrupted. All that entire congressional inquiry, and as a matter of fact, I'll make this carte blanche. There's hardly been a Senate or congressional inquiry that has been legitimate in 50 years. Right. All right? Period. End of story. The Iran-Contra thing was really about drug smuggling right out of with oversight coming right out of the White House. George Bush and Bill Clinton. The craziest thing was all involved with training mercenaries in his backyard in Arkansas and all of that for George Bush. And during the Iran-Contra stuff and the Ronald Reagan and George Bush being vice president at that time, Reagan-Bush administration, and then Bill Clinton theoretically runs against George Bush later on, and beats him, but that was all baloney. He was, like I say, supplying them with with arms deals, flying them in and out and all that. The biggest drug smuggler in the history of America, Barry Seal, was operating full-time. He was a good friend of Bill Clinton's, for crying out. Clinton signed off at one point in time to get him out of jail.
Right.
You know,
right.
This is the biggest drug smuggler in the history of America, was based right out of Bill Clinton's backyard, and all these people that were killed, a huge list of the dead that's connected to crazy operations going on there. I mean, it was bizarre. And I was involved also as a witness in a major $24 million racketeering lawsuit that was filed by a group called the Christic Institute back in '85 or whenever it was. It was really filed before the Contra thing hit the fan, but it was all of those characters. And because of, once I got started doing it, every day was another unbelievable adventure in terms of information. And at one point in time, I was able to secure all of the personal emails and personal written notes, including his own notebook that came out of Oliver North's safe. And I got everything that was not redacted. The information that was supplied to the congressional people that were looking into it, the Iran-Contra inquiry, everything they got was blacked out. All of Oliver North's paperwork, his communications to the president and the vice president, George Bush, and the CIA, and the head of the CIA, and the guys that were running the operations down in Contra and the Nicaragua, down there, all those people, the generals that were in my toy company were primary persons training all those people down there. The General Secord, Richard Secord, Adderholt, and John Singlaub, all these generals, they're in my toy company. They were the guys running the Contra stuff. And like I say, previously doing the Vietnam mess. But that whole thing was a drug smuggling operation where they were taking the weapons from up here, flying them down there, and offloading them and being paid with drugs, loading them onto our military craft, flying them back, and offloading into our military bases. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and then later on I got involved with the Kun Sa, who was out of Burma, doing the inquiry investigations with that, you know, and during the Vietnam thing, they used to ship, these are the same miscellaneous people we're talking about.
Right.
During the Vietnam, the Air America thing, they used to smuggle the drugs sewn up inside the dead bodies of our soldiers that were being shipped back. They shipped them. They were shipping containers for narcotics. So, I mean, you're talking about some real low-life SOBs, and it's all the same guys. Of course, a lot of them are gone now. Have just, died of old age if they weren't murdered.
Right.
But,
well, when you look at the news today, with the set of eyes that you have now in your experience, and you whatever it could be, some kind of false flag or another downed aircraft, and we'll talk about this Russian thing in a second. But do you just go, yeah, whatever? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I do look at it differently because I recognize things that are standard operational procedures for an awful lot of activities, and it is totally different. I got a call the other night from an old friend. It's a lady who literally was in the Central Intelligence. I met her. She was a congressional assistant, but also was actually with Bill Casey, who was the CIA agent head, the chief of the CIA for Ronald Reagan and George Bush.
Right.
And of course, Bush used to be in the CIA, but the old man, Bush #1, he was heavily involved with all kinds of, and involved with the Kennedy thing, as a matter of fact, going back that far. Anyhow, but I got the call the other day from her. She's an old friend, a lady, and from Washington. But and she still has meetings. She's no longer in mainstream up there in Washington, but she still has meetings with the people from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and that type of thing. So the contact still is there. It's not like it used to be from the 80s through the 90s. The contacts I had, the senators and congressmen, and governors, and from all over the United States were calling me on a regular basis. And again, it was usually trying to find out, can I help them with this? Can I help them with that? The October Surprise 1980 investigation, that was when Jimmy Carter, Reagan and Bush were running against Jimmy Carter and all that stuff. I was involved with a congressional inquiry on that. Many, many pages of information that I supplied, at least 5 or 6 different congressional inquiries. The pages that I supplied them ended up being classified top secret.
Do you still have activity outside of your house, in your phones and so forth?
I don't know, and I don't care at this point.
Right.
But I do say this. There's been a couple of attempts to kill me, and that's kind of to the wayside. I don't worry about that now, but there were points in time where I had, even in Orlando, where I had the local police force there had a special security division, and they had guys, parked out in front of my house for different periods of time, things like that. I had one of the big shots with the FBI would have meetings with me on a regular point and would say, that we have guys watching you on a regular basis because we don't want anything to happen to you because it would cause too many problems. But then on the other hand, I was dealing with Sonny Bono. He and I were working. I had supplied him with information for a year, and he had finally called me. They called me in December, I guess, 97 and 96, and he said, when I get back from the Christmas holidays, we're opening up the Senate inquiry or the congressional inquiry, what we've been dealing with. And by the way, this basically was another drug connection into the White House kind of stuff, that kind of very high-level drug operations with the Central Intelligence people being involved, et cetera, et cetera. And it was primarily what I had been supplying him for about 9 months. And he said that we're going to have the ability to subpoena the people to testify, and normally they don't ever subpoena people in the congressional inquiries because that allows them to just say, I forgot, I don't remember, to the best of my knowledge, and all of that kind of stuff. So but they're not forced into talking. So they don't do that very often on congressional inquiries. And with Sonny's case, he said, we got subpoena power, so this is going to be great. And he said, was I ready to come back to Washington? I was in Los Angeles at the time. I said, yes, that's great. That's fantastic. And I'm ready to do it. We've been screwing around this thing for like 9 months or something. And I said, let's do it. And 10 days later, he was murdered on the ski slopes, and they told everybody he ran into a tree and died,
Let's. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? And when you go from furry animals, toy manufacturing, to what you went through, I'm sure you weren't surprised. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Bob Fletcher is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be discussing Nibiru and Planet X. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRAradio.com.
mis amigos, yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Fletcher is with us. We're discussing Nibiru and Planet X and also some current events I'm going to hit him with right now. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Doug Taylor will be here. And it will be a full Atlantis evening. Hey, Bob, before the break, I mentioned Nibiru and Planet X. And let's get to that in a second. But with all of your insight and knowledge, I have to ask you, what do you think is going on with this downed Russian aircraft? 224 people are now dead. And the coincidence of Russia's invasion of Syria and what they're doing, and now the U.S. and Britain jumping in saying that it's a bomb and it's ISIS. Is this just Washington status quo?
Well, I'm not sure. We have to see how it plays out. And when we talk a little bit about the Nibiru situation, the potential of this Planet X swinging back around again, when we get into that, I'll clarify a little bit what I'm talking about in terms of not sure. And there's an extraordinary. The bad part is when you get in as close as I ended up getting into it. And you first off, you do find out things that are specifics at a high level of intelligence there for many years in my case. And so this happened and that happened, or you get the documentation or in some cases film, for crying out loud. But the situation, I anticipate that the United States is going to require, it's going to be obligated. What I'm talking about now are the bad guys that are running the country are going to put us or want to put us into a martial law configuration before the Planet X or Nibiru or whichever incoming galactic problem it tends to turn out to be, before that is seen and recognized as, what's that thing up in the sky that's getting bigger every night, all right?
Right.
There will be a point in time when 100,000 or 25,000 amateur astronomers are going to see this thing. All right. When that happens, we have so many months before it comes really close, swings around, and causes an awful lot of unbelievable problems for the globe. So we have to be under a martial law configuration before that happens, all right? And that's global. Okay, now, where you have, like Red China and Russia, it's easy for them to go into martial law because they're 80% martial law most of the time anyhow.
Right.
But for America, it's going to have to be some real serious problem that will permit the American people to believe that that they're glad that they're being put into martial law. Okay, so what's that going to take? And I put this specifically, as a matter of fact, in the DVD that I put out on Nibiru about a year ago now. That is that it would have to either be an uncontrollable breakout of a biological problem, like Ebola or something of that sort, or any disease situation, or it would have to be very serious terrorist movement in the country, and by that I mean like 3, 4, 5 different cities having 9/11 type problems again, in several cities within 2 weeks or something like that, where everybody is completely running around and pulling their hair out. So we have to have martial law. Or the third that I put in the DVD a year ago is that it might possibly be an apparent movement to World War III, which would be either with Red China and Russia together, or Russia or by themselves, because this Russia was just very, at that point in time a year ago, moving and doing crazy stuff and going into the Caspian Sea area and going into different areas and doing all these strong arm movements, and assisting different parts of their neighborhood. And then, of course, now, most recently, all of a sudden, the Russians announced that they're going to start just blowing up people in the desert and supporting supporting what's his name, Hussein there, that's the dictator in Syria, and that so all of a sudden, see, that's a direct one-on-one against us. All right, it's we're trying to get him out of office. I don't understand why they haven't. If they were serious about that, why he hadn't just been blown up in his car. I'm not sure I follow that. So
right.
that's fishy.
Yes.
No, I mean that's fishy right away.
It is. And
but I mean, I even have a friend, a Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz, who's now pretty much totally retired and not even doing much of the Patriot stuff too much anymore, like he did through the 80s and 90s alongside of myself during the Patriot movement and all of that. But on several times with other types, because he was a Delta Force, he actually was the guy that Rambo movies were actually done on his stories, the real stuff. He did all that jumping out of the airplanes in black outfits and did all that retrieving black boxes and secret documents from behind the lines and all that, crawling through the mud with a knife in his teeth and that kind of stuff. He did that for real. And several times where other dictators, he offered several different presidents, just give me the nod, and I'll go in and he'll be dead tomorrow afternoon, So, and that is the status that our real intelligence and the covert Delta Force and the SEAL teams, they can do that. This guy in Syria, if we wanted him out, he could have been dead 2 years ago. I mean, it's goofy when I watch it and I see where this guy keeps going on and he's killing his own people and he's gassing his own people and he's doing all this blowing up. He's killed 250,000 of his own people in the last year and a half or so. and he's still there. So something's wrong with that picture. You know, we could, again, it's like I say, they just pick up a telephone. They can pick up a telephone for some of their special operatives and just say, hey, by the end of next week, we want that guy out of there, and he'd be in 14 different pieces laying in the desert someplace. So
that's right.
So you gotta, you really, and again, you asked me, like my view, you have to. I take really things with a cautious grain of salt and ice. The bottom line is this, though, with that airliner. Anybody could have put a bomb in the back of that thing, all right? If they decide that there was a bomb that blew the tail off of that thing and brought it down and killed all those Russian people, it could have been ISIS. If you were one of those lunatics, you would step forward and claim that you had done it, even if you didn't know who did it or even how it happened. They'd be trying to get as much terroristic headlines for themselves as they can, and they're recruiting people all over. We should be scared to death from a global point of view with the numbers of undocumented people, the millions of refugees that are going into the United States included, coming into our states here, and that are being accepted throughout Europe. God knows how many out of that bunch, maybe 2,000 of them, are ISIS people.
Right.
So we should be scared to death of those guys coming in on the boats and lining up and feel sorry for 60% of them, but 20% of them are dyed-in-the-wool bad guys. I'll guarantee you that. And we have no idea what the plan B is with all of those people that are now being welcomed into Europe, brought into Germany, France, Italy, Greece, opening the doors and trying to do and spreading them out all over the world. And those guys, that ISIS people, boy, they're nuts, and they're killing in the name of their own Lord, their own God, and they're cutting heads off of Christians in the name of their Lord, for crying out loud.
Right.
So you got a real problem when you're facing with enemies like that. As far as that plane, when it went down, there's a good chance that it just broke in half, because that's physical. That aircraft itself slammed down butt first on an arrival at an airport about 2 years ago. And it actually fell down. It hit the back end, slammed down on the tarmac when on a landing. And they put it up and did all kinds of repairs and stuff. But if they didn't do 115% structural repair on that, it may have just fallen off at 32,000 feet. You get one small crack at 30,000 feet, the pressure drops on the plane, and that back end would have just ripped off like a piece of aluminum foil. And so it could be that simple.
Now,
okay,
I'm
or it could be a false flag. Maybe we did it,
right?
Just to get it.
Yes. Yeah, and we can't discount the one thing that is just right in front of us. It was a Russian plane in the Sinai 2 weeks after Russia starts dropping bombs in Syria. And that, it wasn't a Russian plane flying out of Greece or flying out of the United States or LAX. It was flying out of the Sinai Peninsula. And that's the one thing that, it was a Russian plane. It wasn't, it wasn't a Philippine, it wasn't Korean Air, it wasn't Japan Air, it wasn't U.S. Air. It was, you know what I mean? It wasn't.
But you know what's really funny? See, that airline actually is owned by I think it's Italy. But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
I mean, it was the Russian. It was a Russian labeled plane, etc. But that company actually is the company that is. But then they wouldn't have known that. They would have cared less. The bottom line is 250 Russians, and they're flying through the. through the middle of that area where the Russians the previous week had blown people up all over the place. As far as I'm concerned, the management of that airliner, you know, the airline is still flying their planes over the desert when the previous month the Russians have been blowing up people every 2 days. That's really stupid. But then, you know, I'm not the manager of their airline, but I can't imagine. And now that it happens, everybody's changed their routing. You know, nobody's flying over that desert now. But that's kind of stupid and coming out of the gate, I think.
Yeah, I know.
No,
and you know what? This is my crystal ball here. I want your opinion on this, but this is my crystal ball. Next week, Washington is going to say Assad is not that bad. We need to have him stay in power for the stability of Syria. We just need to concentrate on ISIS. That is the next thing out of Washington. What do you think?
Well, I don't know because I don't have any information from the inside, so to speak, that would steer me in some kind of a proper direction. But I have to reiterate, we haven't done anything with him yet.
Right.
While we've been saying that this guy is demonic. He's one of the few people running, but then the people that are running the United States are demonic. So I don't know what I guess I don't have a good argument there. But the point is, you know, and now I'm talking about the peoples that really run this country. And if anybody that's listening thinks that the people that these different people you're voting for, including anybody coming up for the presidency, if you think they really run the country, well, then, you know, God bless you and may you have a happy life. But
well, you found that out the hard way.
Yeah, and it's such a reality, and when it first happened, it was overwhelming. But believe it or not, I'm working on a new report that I won't get into much at all tonight about until I accomplish it. You know, but that has blown me completely out. It has just blown my mind completely, this new situation that I'm investigating. You know, and I just, I best thing I can say is pray for the globe, because there's things going on that are so beyond to a point where a normal person would just could not believe it in a million years, things that I've discovered. And I had no intention of doing anything else after the last DVD that I did on Nibiru. And let me get into the Nibiru thing a little bit, so that everything that I've done for the last 30 years has been chasing bad guys, corrupted people in government, and corrupted people running the government that are not in government but still have the control of everything. And this world government, new world order, and everything, that's totally real. The concept of putting us into a configuration to be part of a big world government run by a limited few that has control of everything and totally every part of your life. We have slowed them down a little bit, fortunately, and I will say, you know, the talk radio programs and the patriot movements around the world and around the United States have had a lot to do with slowing down their plan. But it's been planned for many years, and if you look at the Communist Manifesto, the 8 or 12 steps to taking a free nation and putting it into the communistic concept, which is what the New World Order will be. It's being sold to everybody like this panacea of a wonderful situation with everybody's medical cares and problems will be taken care of, and you don't have to worry about making decent income. Everybody will be having a big fair piece of the pie and all of that stuff, and education will be wonderful because it'll all be unified and everything will be free, and the medical care will be close to free and all the rest of that stuff. And all of these things, Obamacare, okay, and the banking mergers of all the big banks taking on the small ones and eating them up, everything corporately being brought in under giant banners, and small businesses all being taken under the banner of big companies. All of those things are the New World Order, one world government concept, but black that out and write in there the Communist Manifesto, and that's what they are. And somebody it's something that I knew about a long time ago, but somebody came out with it again recently on YouTube and did a nice story about the fact that Hillary Clinton, part of her thesis for getting her degree, bachelor's degree in confusion or whatever it is that she got, she wrote about the merits of these wonderful concepts to help. We should bring the country into this under this banner, and all 8 points that she makes are the Communist Manifesto. It's the medical care being run by Washington, schools and education for everybody run by Washington, the banks all together, and then single government, single language throughout the globe. So there's one language, and all of this stuff. She actually wrote a paper and got a good degree, good mark on it, and everything else in college. And that's what it was. And so when you see these people and guns, holy mackerel, that's the top of the list, like number 2 almost, is nobody can have guns unless they're authorized by the United Nations. And just the last 2 years, they passed that. That's been already passed at the United Nations level, That's why you have all this garbage. You have these screwballs and guys go out and shoot people, and right away they want, you got to take guns out of everybody's hands, and now they got this new slick thing. You mark my words, now they're going to try and push this. I don't know where it's going to go, but they have these guns now called smart guns, where it can only be shot by you have to wear a piece of jewelry, for example, like a ring or a bracelet, and it emits a signal so that when you grab your gun, you will be able to shoot it because that will unlock it. And then if anybody else picks it up, they can't shoot it because they don't have that unlocking microchip in their hand, okay, or on a ring or on a necklace or whatever. Now, they're going to push that like crazy. I don't think it's going to go anyplace. But the idea is once they can do that, for one thing, they're going to be able to track you with that microchip that you got on your ring that permits you to shoot your gun. They're going to be able to find you and just take your gun away from you. They're also going to be able to transmit an electronic signal so that when the time comes that they want to take your gun or take you, they want to arrest you, if you grab your gun for any defense reason at all, they'll throw a switch and the gun's not going to work. See, but people are very likely to think that's a neat idea, that, that way no screwball can grab the gun and that's not supposed to and get a gun and just shoot somebody unless you got the electronic device, the little chip in your ring finger or on your necklace or something. And they're going to think that's great, but I got news. The bad guys are going to have registered with your name the identification transmission number. They'll be able to shut your gun off. So that's another that's a small.
Well, that's a perfect component if they did institute martial law. That's a big deal. But see, again, if the terrible thing is their capability to carry out these false flag operations, whether it's artificial terrorism or chemical biological diseases, or the case where we're talking about making it appear that the United States and Russia are going to have a head-to-head conflict. It was only last week that the airplanes had to get together, our planes and theirs had to get together and come up with some kind of a signaling mechanism so that they didn't have conflict in the air
and accidentally start shooting at each other. You know, I mean, when you have those guys flying in an area where we've been flying now for 5 years with our planes and our drones and our regular jet fighters, you know, and we're flying, doing our operations, and now all of a sudden the Russians coming in and they're doing theirs, and they're not going to tell us where they're going to go. You know, the chances of having them shoot one of our fighters down or vice versa is very high, you know. Well, when that happens, very easily you can move, you know, the people, you know, if we shot down a Russian, the Russians would shoot down 2 of ours, even if it was a mistake, you know, because the Putin's put himself in that position where, you know, he's Mr. Macho in charge of this huge army from the Russians, and they have missiles and jet planes and absolutely the equivalent of probably 90% of what we have, you know, almost as good, if not as good. And, you know, so, and he would certainly put the order out, if any American shoots at you, you shoot them down. If they shoot one of us, we shoot 3 of theirs, you know, and you got World War III, for crying out loud. Or the perception of World War III, that the Americans would say, oh, they just declared martial law. They're worried about this. There's submarines out off of the coast now. They're Red Chinese, they're Russian. They got the missiles, and they shot down 2 of our planes, and so they declare general martial law to protect the people. As long as the people believe it, they're going to be happy to get it. And that'd be the end of that.
Well, and is Russia and China, are they in lockstep? Are they holding our hands when it comes to... Well,
they're in more lockstep than you might think. They had a couple years ago, 18 months ago, whatever it was, they signed some tremendous oil agreements and what have you. The oil coming out of the Caspian area there that the Russians had control of mostly. They signed a huge, with the Chinese, a huge multi-billion-dollar, multi-year contractual agreement on all of that. It's one of the reasons why Russia might be expanding their grip, you know, in this area where it's oil is the main source of income.
Well, what about Nibiru, Planet X, when it comes to Russia and China, the institution of martial law, which you had talked about earlier? Are we in lockstep on that front as well?
So, and I want to preface this, and we talk about this now. I want to preface this that originally, because of what I've done, you know, and at the level the inquiry that I've assisted was Senate and Congressional and Congress and et cetera, you know, I've been highly respected for what I've done, and I'm internationally known, et cetera, and all that good stuff. But I never got into anything that would be quote unquote hokey, you know, or strange or science fiction or anything of that. It's all been straight up and down serious inquiries. So the idea of this Planet X, it didn't come to me. It was not something I had an interest in. Not like I've studied it previously for a long time. I certainly did when I got into it, but and getting with people that have spent their entire lives chasing it or studying it and following it, if you will. But what happened a couple of years ago, I had several people kept saying, you got to find out what's going on with, number one, tremendous amounts of money vanishing, just money in general, you know, cash vanishing out of the coffers of the legitimate programs out of Washington, but then also covert and black and even covert money being transferred into other more covert, deeply secret operations than they were originally put into. And, you know, and it got to be where it was gigantic amounts of money. Right. And on the day before, and people were asking me, you got to at least look into it. If you don't do anything else, look into this. You know, and then, like I said, I'm getting to be an old man, so it's getting old. But I said, okay, all right. So I started looking into it, and a great example was Donald Rumsfeld, who was in charge of the Defense Department for several years with the Bush and Reagan and all during that period of time. But a few years back, actually the day before the 9/11, so it's 2001 or whatever, Rumsfeld's talking before the Congress on another investigation of sorts, and he said, as a matter of fact, I guess they were looking for money. He said, well, the Defense Department has been unable to track $2.3 trillion.
Gone.
And he said, we lost it. Okay. And it was over a period of a few years. It was not like a single year, but it was over a period of a couple of years. They lost $2.3 trillion. And I found out about that. I saw him do the. I had the videotape of his testimony, and that was the day before the Twin Towers came down at 9/11 thing. All right. So obviously there was no follow up on his statement that they had lost $2.3 trillion. But then I found out also, obviously, that the gold is all gone out of Fort Knox. There is no gold at Fort Knox. It's gone. And the Senate and the Congress, on many different guys, have moved forward over the last 5 years, 10 years, have gone in and said, hey, we need an audit. And, of course, they simply tell them to take a hike because there's nothing at all that says that the Federal Reserve, who runs that part of the program, they're not obligated to respond to the Senate or the Congress or the President, really. And they just told them, go away, we're not doing an audit. It's none of your darn business. Okay? So at the same time, a couple of years ago, we had the fellow that was in charge, flew over from France or Geneva, wherever he was, and a billionaire unto himself, and he was the head of the International Monetary Fund out of Europe. And he said the European nations under the IMF require an audit of the gold because we don't think our gold is still there. And they ran him out on a pole. They actually charged him with a false sex scandal thing out of New York, and they actually went on his plane. Matter of fact, what he did was he said, if I don't get an audit or a guarantee of an audit, I'm going to the United Nations as the International Monetary Fund, and we are going to force you to audit and prove the gold is there or show us where, what, and who. All right? That was what he did. He threatened them. So what happened the next day, he's getting on his own plane that's probably a $14 to $20 million airplane, flying back home, all right? They grabbed him, yanked him off of the plane in New York, arrested him for chasing his maid around the bedroom at the $2,000 a night hotel he was in. Now, it was, of course, that's bull, But the bottom line is they said, listen, we're going to put you in jail here in New York and scandalize you if you don't shut up and just get out of here, get on your plane, and don't come back to America. So that's how they handled the head of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, when he asked for the gold audit. So this is a long story getting around to the bottom line that the money of gold out of Fort Knox has been disappearing. It's all gone. The money from every nook and cranny has been disappearing. Now, the question then was, what in the world, how could you spend all of this money? And why would you be spending this money? You can't, stealing a few million a month, which a lot of the senators and congressmen get away with, and it's a lot of the, quite often, investigations that I was involved with, like with Henry Gonzalez, was trying to track down misappropriated funds and things of that sort. But the bottom line is you can't money launder $1 trillion.
No, you can't.
I mean, the biggest drug smuggler in the world, with all their power and strength and the ability to kill you if you didn't cooperate, they can't money launder $1 trillion. It's just not. So the bottom line was, what I discovered was that they had been building in the United States 103 underground facilities, survival facilities for the wealthy elite. Then I found out, to my surprise at that time, that they've been doing it all around the world, that the Russians built 5,000 small underground facilities in a period of about 3 years. They accomplished that around 2013, beginning of 2014. They had accomplished putting up as many as 5,000 of these hideouts. Now, some of theirs were very big. Those would be the ones that are going to be for the upper echelon, and then another bunch of them are for the second level of people in society. But the upper level, of course, would be going into the big fancy ones. One of them, which can accommodate something like 40,000 people for many years underground, really big. The ones in the United States include underground maglev trains, underground going between states from one location to another at almost, 400 miles an hour underground in these like vacuum tube tunnels. Then I found out, and the Chinese been doing the same thing, underground facilities, big ones, a lot of them. Additionally, and I actually tracked the fact that for several years, a couple of years now, they've been contracting, the government's been contracting with like 90% of the American productions on survival foods, the dry foods and things of that sort, and they've been contracted and grabbed up almost all of that for the last 4 or 5 years. And they're supplying the underground facilities with a targeted date of 2014, 15, 16, all right? In other words, they're not building and creating them and supplying them in terms of for 2025.
Right.
They've been doing it for this month, next month, that kind of a thing. So then, finally, I found out what it was, and that was the apparent disclosure or discovery in 1983 when Reagan was president, Bush was vice president, Bush #1, vice president, and they put they were working on the Star Wars initiative thing, where they were putting telescopes out all over the place and sensing devices around to theoretically keep track of Russian or Chinese missiles coming in and the ability to shoot them down. And they were working on weapons that would shoot down these missiles and things in a few seconds. It would have to be in a configuration where they actually could go from multiple targets, boom, 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 that type of thing, in outer space and knock down the rockets coming in and everything. But in the middle of that, they had sent out, of course, their new infrared telescope way out past where nothing like it had ever been sent out before. And the word was, there's this big infrared planet that everybody's been talking about. It is out there, and we tracked it for a while, and it looks like in 20 years or so that's going to be coming back in our backyard. And, of course, there's been, for eons, there's been people writing about this and talking about it. It's in the Bible, described very well. And not only that, it's been a couple of the people who I've started to keep track and follow their work, had been tracking this thing for years. And, of course, most people say, what are you talking about? I can't see it. I don't even know, it's out there so far. Don't worry about it. But the idea was that it was on this extraordinarily huge orbital configuration. said pretty much to probably be on a 3,000-year orbital schedule, okay, and that it would come around approximately every 3,000 or 3,500 years, and that it was what caused Noah's floods. And then one or two of the groups that have done, like I say, the serious studies on this for so many years, one fellow actually went to China and lived there for a while and got into the old emperor's writings and the translations of that and other manuscripts that go back either hundreds or thousands of years, and they describe this thing as being a huge planet that comes around. It's got four or five moons dragging around with it, and does come in this huge orbital thing. And when it comes by, it disrupts because of its size, and it's amazing how many proofs of documented scriptures, including, the monks on the top of the Himalayas and the Chinese emperors and their old astronomers going back 1,000 years and all, that wrote about this thing. And it's all the same. The period of time is always, it's a little hard to put a handle on that, but the period of time of its return is always kind of agreed upon, and again, in terms of governmental situations, as I mentioned earlier, they cannot announce this to anybody. In other words, the Russians, the Chinese, they talk about the planet in Russia and China much more than they do here, but nobody's saying, like 9 months down the road, this thing's going to be here. Right, and obviously to do that would cause really a world panic. To say that it would affect the economy is, that would be the least of our problems. I mean, people would just go completely nuts if they thought something was going to come around and do this destruction. And it would be multiple of problems. But the point is, for one thing, I was convinced that this is real. I had enough other background and again the politics and the creating these underground facilities and filling them with the foods for 2 years, and preparation of things for these underground facilities and the movements, the changes, the alterations in programs and different things they started doing. It all supports, unfortunately, the fact that within the next year or two, that the Nibiru is going to be passing close by again. And apparently, the previous dates, according to people, not myself, but according to the people that have been studying this for so long and all, the concept is that it will be visually seen in December in the sky like a new star, and then it will just get bigger progressively, and that December, January, February, March, and by March it will be passing close to be causing the serious problems. And by the way, my DVD, which covers all of this, everything, and pictures of the underground facilities, all of the scientific, everything involved with it, and all you could ever even, it's an entire library of information. It's 4 hours long. It's a double disc DVD, and it's available at my website. If people want to get it, you can get a copy of it at BobFletcherInvestigations.com. It's BobFletcherInvestigations.com. Or you can just go on Google and put Bob Fletcher Nibiru, and you'll end up getting that getting directed one way or another. It's all over the world at this point in time.
Yeah, we've got all the links up at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
That's great. And as a matter of fact, let me make this point because I found out a lot of my older friends out there, some of them that are not don't like to get involved with the computer one way or another. If you drop me a note It's a post office box 216, Bayview, Idaho, 83803. It's box 216, Bayview, Idaho, 83803, and it's $24.95. We pay the shipping on both discs, and it's really it's mind-boggling. It's a little tedious because it is long, but it covers every tiny aspect, including things like the religious side. You see, the Catholic Church a couple of years ago, because of all of this, put in the largest infrared land telescope that was available at that time a few years ago in Arizona, cooperatively with the United States, and it's owned by the Vatican. So they're completely up to speed on this thing. They're completely aware of it and watching it.
Well, Bob, I wanted to jump in really quick. Go ahead. What is the use of? I mean, obviously, underground facilities are great. You're protected. But what is the use of that? Is Nibiru just going to come so close to us that the gravitational pull is going to cause the damage?
Okay. Well, it's if and when this comes by. First off, it's going to be dragging as 24 million miles of space junk. All right, you can equate it to Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet comes around, although that's just, Halley's Comet is like a ball of ice, so that's like not a big thing, and it doesn't pass close, and it has no effect. Halley's Comet has about a 24 million mile tail of junk. It's amazing when these figures get outrageous. But there's also another comet, was the Hale-Bopp comet, discovered a few years back. And it came around and went around the sun and back on out. That's like Halley's Comet, around the sun and goes back out again. The Hale-Bopp comet was even larger, and it also had this millions of miles of junk behind it. But the point, also one reason I bring that up, when I first got into this and people were talking about this maybe a 3,000-year orbit, and I thought, get out of here. What are you talking about? Something that goes out to Neverland and comes back 3,000 years, like 1,800 years to come out and go back, on two trips. I thought, wow, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But then come to find out the Hale-Bopp comet is a 4,200-year orbit. And they didn't even know about it up until, 10, 15 years ago. All right. So the point is, the length of the orbit is not ridiculous.
Interesting.
But here's what's going to happen. Number one, first off, the the magnetics of this thing, besides the gravity, it's going to just wipe out all of our satellites, all of our electronic transmissions of all that stuff is going to be kaputs. All right? Then, as it will pass around, it'll come by and pass and actually cause an eclipse of the sun for a period of time. It will go behind the sun, trailing all this junk. We will pass through the tail of this thing one time, then it will go around and back out, and we will pass through it a second time. The calculations is it'll be 155 days between going through it, number one, and going through the tail, number two. Mm-hmm. During that period of time, which is about 1 hour, that's doing the calculation on the speeds of the Earth going around the sun, and this unit at the width of the band that will be dragging behind it as junk, and all the rest of that. We will go through it about 1 hour, 2 different times. In other words, first time we'll go through about an hour, and then the second time, which will be 155 days later, about 4 or 5 months, we will go through it a second time, and again, that'll be an hour. But during that period of time, we are going to be hit with what in the Bible described as brimstone. All right, it's going to be a meteor shower of junk, and it's going to be flaming red-hot material, and it's going to cause fires like crazy. And the electronics may cause all of our power to go down. We may be blacked out during that period of time, or as a matter of fact, for a long period of time, depending on the destruction. And interestingly enough, the head of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, and also the former head of the CIA, Homeland Security, and the head of the Woolsey, head of the CIA, they both retired about 18 months ago, and they both made simultaneous almost forecasts where they said we have to be aware of the likelihood of electromagnetic impulses causing our power to go completely out on the globe. They both made that statement. Now, they were implying that they may be from solar flares, but additionally, and they stayed completely away from the concept of Nibiru. But what I told everyone in the DVD, which, by the way, it's about, available about whatever, I guess it's a year at this point, about a year ago when I first put it out. What I put in there specifically was that that what I said, and I did predictions, which I don't like doing that, but I did it relative to scientific reality, that I said our weather would change completely as of starting a year ago, and that it would never be the same again. You would see storms like we've never had, et cetera, because it will be starting to be the effects of this thing, even though it's not even visible yet. That it will be going through the solar system and like a bowling ball, knocking meteors and things of that sort, so we would have an increase in meteor and falling stars and shooting stars and all that. Both of those have exactly taken place as I've stated. Additionally, I told everyone in the DVD that the entire solar system has already started to be affected, starting out by Pluto and coming back inwards towards the sun. And what has happened now, it had already started a little bit, but what has happened as we speak today is that planets are literally being wiggled in their orbital configuration. The temperature and the surface gases are all changing and heating up on most of them. There are even brand new gas and surface activity taking place on all of the planets as we speak. Additionally, I said that it will be affecting the glacier and the melts of the glaciers, etc., which, by the way, now the Iceland and the South Pole is melting quicker than it ever has in 1,000 years. They are losing miles of ice a day. It's mind-boggling. They're not telling people about it too much. You can find it. If you look it up, you can find it on the computer. Their glacier melts, I predicted, are going to be increasing, and they have. Matter of fact, Miami, as of about maybe a year ago or 7 months ago, something like that, Miami spent millions of dollars to put pumps in, because on the regular high tide now in Miami Beach, Florida, it comes in 5 blocks into the city. Every high tide, because of the increase in the water level coming from the melting glaciers.
What's the use of the underground bases in that? Is it just to protect the elite from what is going on up on the surface? You know, you and I fighting over whatever? Because
first off, what goes on, if all of it comes to fruition as it's anticipated to do, okay, and this comes around and does the different things that it just physically will do, and it did it before about 3 times, as good as it's been able to be researched. Like I say, it was Noah's flood. That was from this. And there are other, like I say, multitude of scriptural backing on all of this stuff, not just Christian, but in all varieties of religious manuscripts, et cetera, et cetera. All right. As far as from the elite controlling people's point of view, all right, number one is they're going to get underground. Some of these places are inside of mountains, high elevated mountains, inside granite mountains. The old NORAD facility's been updated and converted to be one of the locations. They will have their entire cities, and by the way, I have pictures and even live footage of some of these underground facilities that nobody's ever put all this stuff together except myself in this large DVD presentation. They've also as far back in the 90s, this has surfaced a few times, and most recently with the racial problems we've had, they've been supplying police and sheriff's departments with military crowd control weapons, the armored cars, machine guns, bazookas, grenade launchers. All of this stuff has been put into police and sheriffs across the United States. And the caveat has been that, of course, they, gave them to them for cheap price or for free and all this and that. They just said that if, in fact, we ever have to use you to help us during a martial law control configuration, you've got to – that's what this equipment is for. So learn how to use it. We'll teach you how to use it, and we want to be able to depend on you if, in fact, we have social unrest necessary to be controlled. That's what all these things – for 20 years now almost, going back to the 90s, they've been supplying this stuff. And everybody's just saying, well, why does the sheriff's department in Titty Poo Poo, Oklahoma someplace, why does he need grenade launchers and all that stuff?
Yeah,
What's going on with that?
audio cannons.
Yeah.
Bob, I wanted to jump in. We're going to be against a break here in 1 minute.
Okay.
There's one other thing when you were talking about erratic weather, right?
Yes.
And the poles in Iceland or Greenland melting,
right?
And then today, NASA releases a press release saying that in Antarctica, we're now freezing more ice than is melting.
Right.
Now,
yeah, but it's two different types of ice. They pulled that about 6 months ago too,
yes.
where they were talking about.
I'm talking about the inconsistency in weather patterns.
Well, okay, but no, all right, but the reality is also when they talk about that, they're talking about one type of ice, whereas in reality the glaciers are melting so profusely from underneath. Actually, see. Now, and what we have going on now, and I know we're coming up on a break, but what we have going on now is volcanoes. That's something I put in there. I said there will be more volcanoes erupting and coming back to life than you have ever seen in your lifetime, and that is a fact. Today, that is a fact. We have as many as 45 or 47 blowing their top as we speak,
right.
Believe it or not.
Yes.
The earthquakes increasing. The entire crust of the earth is being stressed from some unknown entities because they're refusing, obviously. They can't talk about this. It cannot talk about it until, at least until they're down underground, And when they declare martial law, they will be doing it with a pre-recorded message because they're already going to be gone.
Exactly.
I'm telling you that,
yeah.
And you're laughing, and I appreciate that. But the reality is that's the reality.
Yeah, I'm laughing with you, not at you.
I got
Bob.
you. No, I got you.
This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Fletcher. When I come back, I'm going to ask him, does Oprah got a free ticket in? We'll be back right after this.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit fnginnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's fnginnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony. Damn
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Fletcher is with us. We're talking about Nibiru, Planet X. Tomorrow night, Doug Taylor will be right here on Fade to Black. It'll be an all Atlantis type of evening. Bob, I was right before the break, I had brought up, sarcastically, does Oprah know about an underground facility, or people do they have a ticket in, the Golden Pass?
Well, I'll tell you what. If now, when you in terms of the powers control upper echelon that I'm referring to, that real limited few, they could care less about her, and her money is neither here nor there. Period. End of story. However, if she's smart, she's already got a place, because you can get an underground, commercially constructed home for yourself in one of the old silos that have been totally converted, and they're extraordinarily nice, and only cost you about $1 million prepay or something like that for a family of 4 or 5, and with food, guaranteed food for a given period of time, and all the rest of that, with exercise rooms and swimming pools and everything you can imagine in commercially available underground facilities. And there's a good handful of them. And you can find them yourself. If you got $1 million and you want to go and take your family and secure an advance reservation, you can do it today, and just have to look it up on the computer yourself. Look for underground survival facilities for sale, and you can find a whole bunch of them. And they're really, really pretty well done.
You and I, we can go in halves.
Oh yeah, we can do it. If you got $1 million, you go ahead and get it and buy it and get your, you just buy it and you own it, and that's it. And when the poop hits the fan, you hope you can get there in time with your family. Then.
Right. Well, we know about the ruling elite and that side of things, but what's the good news for the rest of us? What can we do?
There is no good news for the rest of us. How's that grab you? There really isn't. If you're on the coast, you're probably really in trouble because the entire coast would probably going in as far as 100 miles inland is going to be just washed over like Noah's floods. What they say, the scientists, like I say, have been studying this for so long and have it down to to finite points in time and things of that sort. What they expect is that the gravitational movement will yank the oceans out of their seabed and throw them up, and then you have the potential of just any reasonable size meteor that smacks into the water any place. You're going to have a tsunami like we witnessed from the small under-the-water earthquake that took place a couple of years ago and killed 250,000 people in the Philippines or wherever that was where they had that problem.
Right.
Right now, there is a volcano that's acting up off 400 miles off the coast of Oregon, under the water. That's affecting the water. It's heating it. It's going to cause tropical storms being created where they were never created before because of the temperature of the water being raised up on a regular basis from underground volcanic activity. That's taking place as we speak. And they get talking, they do all this funny stuff. They say, whoa, there's this big, strange, hot glob of water that's changed the weather over here on the West Coast for a long time now, for a couple of months, and nobody seems to know. Well, whatever. They're just not looking in the right place, and the bottom line is it's a volcano that's changed the temperature. The underneath heating up of the glaciers is very creepy, and you can look all these things up. And again, none of this is going to be offered to you on the regular news. They're still dancing around. The other day we had that hurricane that everybody saw down there in West Mexico, right?
Right.
They had the biggest, most violent potential hurricane in the history of weather. It started in one day. And in the second day, it was a Category 5 with a small eye. It was not a real big eye, but in the eye, the maintained speed was 220 miles an hour. The fortunate thing was that it smacked right against the ground in Mexico between two towns and hit instantly a real high mountainous. It's like a short distance from the water to a mountain, and hit that mountain, and that pretty much wiped it out. But it still caused all kinds of problems and rain and everything. All of the crazy. Watch the weather. The weather on the globe is like it has never been before. It's freezing and snowing in places where it's never done that before. You'll have floods, the drought. Look at the drought situation. Droughts and floods and mudslides and earthquakes. Today there was a 6-point-something quake in, I don't even remember where it was. The quakes are happening like crazy. And there's a few people that have a handle on it, and they're saying that the total stress that's taking place on the globe, the crust of the earth, is way beyond what it's ever been before. And they have 2 or 3 earthquakes in a triangulation area, okay, a quake there, a quake there, and a quake there, and they coming and they're saying that there's going to be a volcano kicking up over here because of these 3, and there's a few people that have that down, and they're pretty good. They say, hey, 10 days there's going to be this is going to happen or that's going to happen, doing these triangulations of stress on the crust, and they're right, see? And something is causing it, and basically it's Nibiru.
I have, this is from Renee, one of our producers here. She says, Bob, I ask you this due to the firestorm you created in the 1990s when you said scientists were able to control the weather. Were you dismayed by the lack of media coverage of the July peer-reviewed paper of Dr. Marvin Herndon that proved the reality and health and environmental hazards of chemtrail geoengineering?
Okay, well, all right, of course, I was the first person that made it public. what they were doing at that time. It was 1995, and I had this character that thought he was going to make a fool of me, and because he said, you told United Press International that we had control of the weather, and his problem was that he just didn't know about it,
Right.
And then I said, well, of course we do, and I can prove it. And matter of fact, Senator Pell, Claiborne Pell, a few years earlier, had done an entire written story on the fact that we had used it in Vietnam in a small degree, and that we now had the electronic ability to create earthquakes, create hurricanes, tornadoes, expand them and move them and direct them. And it's electronically done. And of course now it's kind of like accepted. That's a common thing. Well, yes, I didn't get any letters back from the Congress apologizing or telling me that, sorry, you were right, Mr. Fletcher, but you didn't. And what was the second part of that? The last part that you said something about?
Yeah, the hazards of chemtrail geoengineering.
Yeah, well, the chemtrails obviously, they're a real thing, but they're not being utilized as a weapon. We've had these people talk about, they said, guys, they fly over because I didn't turn in my income tax last year, and they flew over and all my chickens died. Trust me, they're not doing that. It costs too much money to screw around that stuff to be killing your chickens. But then the chemtrails, part of those are there are two things. Part of the chemtrails that you actually might see, and et cetera, are part of the weather experiments, trying to create, assisting or creating in clouds and that type of thing, dense humidity, and then becoming a storm cloud thing. Those are parts. One part of that is that. The other part is actually it's some of the newer jet type ion engines and some of the newer engines being utilized in some experimental craft. I'm going to get into that craft stuff a little bit later. I'm not going to talk about it too much tonight at all. But there's I'm working on a new project that's just really upsetting, and it covers weapons and that are enough to make your hair completely fall out. It should scare. It actually dwarfs Nibiru, and that's how bad it is. And then some of the aircraft and the advances that we have in that stuff. It's so far past your imagination. You will actually you think you're in a dream. It's way past anybody's imagination. I talk a little bit about it in the Nibiru thing, where I mentioned that we're stupid to think that they shoot these rocket ships up with these Roman candles and firecrackers,
right?
And that's our space program,
right?
Right?
Yeah.
In other words, what do we do with our telephones now? You do everything with your telephones except take them to bed, right? Okay, so the telephones and all of everything is so far advanced, even for the little old lady from Pasadena, but they're still trying to tell you that we're going up to the space platform every once in a while with this big firecracker, the same thing that we launched in the desert in 1949 as our initial experiment with the scientists brought over from the Nazi thing, that we're using that same firecracker that pushes a big metal thing up in. Boy, wait till you find out the rest of the story. Your hair will fall out.
Well, we'll save that for another show, and I can't wait to get you back on. I want to ask you this: what about the Anunnaki connection with Nibiru? Wouldn't they want to run some type of interference, or come to the rescue, or ET to save
Why
our
would they
beautiful?
do that?
Well, I'm asking you.
See, in other words, if you stop and think about it, and okay, now I give you my opinion. That's Dr. Sitchin's wrote 5-6 books on it, and I mentioned him in the DVD as well, because he's a guy that actually did do the transcription of the 2,000-year-old clay tablets that initially talked about what happened when Planet X came around, and that was part of my information, looking at that and analyzing it, and of course part of that was he talked about people being here on Earth at that time from another planet that was a neighboring planet, if you will, or one of the moons trailing around with Nibiru, and when Nibiru was coming in and coming back, which was one of those tremendous floods and quakes and situations back a couple thousand years ago, when it came by or was about to, they write in the clay tablets that these alien persons left. They just jumped on their craft and hit the bricks and went up into so they obviously had either no manner by which to control it, or had no interest in controlling it, and again, the clay tablets, if you believe any of it, or you believe none of it. But if you believe any of it, the clay tablets basically say that there's a lower level of IQ man that was on the ground at that time, was being utilized as a mining slaves, if you will, and almost stupefied robots to just do mining on the behalf of these space people, the Anunnaki, and that when the Nibiru was on its way back through, the Anunnaki packed up their bags, got on their aircraft, and left, and that was the end of it. And that's all in these stories on the clay tablets. And by the way, there's still 2,200 of those tablets that have never been deciphered.
That's right.
And they're wrapped up in a museum, and all that good stuff. But I got into his stuff only using it as one small, tiny spoke in the wheel in terms of my investigations. And but I guess the shocking or surprising part was to find out that it was documented so well in all these scriptures, including on the walls of caves, if you will. Back in 1999, I think it was, there was a metal disc found in Germany. It's called the Star Disk or Sky Disk, and this is it was discovered at a site in Germany similar to the Stonehenge type of a location, and it apparently was an astronomical or a stargazer's location back 3,000 years ago. And in 1999, they uncovered a whole bunch of, archaeological finds and materials and goods. Now, what this is a bronze disc. And by the way, I have all of this is also in the live pictures of it and all in the films of it in my DVD. The disc is about 13 inches across, and it is bronze, and it is gilded, highlighted in pure gold, laminated in pure gold. And it's like a drawing, if you will, that was done 3,500 years ago, describing and showing the passing of Nibiru and causing the sun to go dark for a couple of hours or whatever, and then passing on. And so now what's amazing is it has on the disc in this gold inlay, not only is it highlighting the sun and the moon at the same time, and also showing Nibiru passing, but it also has the galaxies and constellations up around in their proper location. All right, and by taking our new computer programs, they took this, they ran these constellations in their locations where they are, and they are able to come up with not only the year and the month and the day that this was showing, but also down to the point that it was 8:30 in the morning. So that's how good the new computers are that can track back the constellation locations. And they took this, they ran on the computer, and they came back with the fact that it was about 3,600 years ago when it was done. And it was, again, found in Germany, shows the location of where it was and the passing of the Nibiru at 8:30 in the morning, and I don't have the date off the top of my head. It was like April 15th or something like that for our new calendar. Now, bearing in mind during this period of time, there's been several different calendars, and so, you get nowadays it would be give or take probably a couple of months, okay, in terms of, just differences in the calendars.
Right.
But the spooky thing is, it indicated it to be coming up on the 3,500 year point in the next 2 years. So the people that I've been dealing with, 2-3 different groups actually, that have been studying it and following it and all the rest of that, they have a little bit of disagreements on different things, but basically all pretty much agree. They anticipate Nibiru to be seen this December, and the following March, 4 or 5 months later, for it to pass close by, or if it does not appear this year in December and then January, February, March, then we probably have a full year again of a leeway. In other words, it might be the next year. Most people were betting on it to be this year, first seen December, and headed in for this next March. If it's not seen, or in my case, I put it this way: if they don't put us into martial law in the next couple of months, we're probably not going to have to worry about it. Now, in other words, for this year, then we probably have an entire year. Because apparently, according to all of the different information scripturally and all the rest of that that's been put together, it's always in the March, during Passover period of time. It was the February, March, April, in that period of time is when it apparently always had passed close to the earth. Now, part of the difference in arguments with some of the groups is whether it has come around every 350 to 360 years or 3,060 or 3,600. And it has to do with one group that I feel very strongly, actually both of them I have high respect for, but the point is, one of them feels it's been here every 360 years, and that they can show it geographically and geologically, where there's been interruption in the growth of vegetation every 350 years going back, and also the argument was that because of the figure 0 was not really utilized until a few hundred or years ago, or a couple thousand years ago, then they started using the 0. And prior to that, when they drew out long numbers like 3,600 or 360, that one extra 0 might be a mistake, may be an error. Okay, so again, it gets, if it comes around every 360 years, that's come around 10 times in the last 3,000 years. And if it just comes around every 3,500 years, then it'll just come around at that point. But the bottom line is the anticipation is that it would be seen this December or next December. And that once it's seen, it'll take 3 or 4 months to pass, come in close, a couple months to go out again and be gone. But when it passes, the poop's going to hit the fan. And so, anyhow, and also there is another argument. Everybody says, where do I look to see it? And what we tend to forget is that everything is moving in the solar system, and they all have their own moves. Everything's rotating, and then everything's going around the sun on their own orbital configuration, et cetera, and to say at what time for you to look out the window at what direction is like almost impossible. And if it's shielded by the sun, like the one that came into Russia, remember that meteor that came in and caused problems in Russia?
Yes.
A while back. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming. And you think with all of the stuff we got up there, and the funny thing is they were anticipating one that did come in and just flew by that day, and they did know about that, but they never knew about this one that all of a sudden came from behind our vantage point of the sun. So it was being blocked by the sun, and they never saw it. So the idea that, they'll see that thing, not necessarily, I guess. And my last statement on this is many in the astronomy family that is following this say that it will be coming up from 30 degrees off below our plane of the ecliptic, which is the plane on which most all of our planets in the system circle. In other words, give or take a few million miles up and down, they're all on a plane they call the plane of the ecliptic.
That's right.
And there's a big argument that this thing may be coming in from 30 degrees off, and that also makes it a whole different thing as to who's going to see it first on the globe, et cetera, et cetera. And if you put your arm out to the side, straight out, flat out from your shoulder, that would be the plane of the ecliptic that most of our planets are on. And if you go down about a foot, that would be about 30 degrees below, and that would be a whole different plane that it may be coming in on. So it's that extra little wet cloth that gets thrown into the whole thing.
Well, with the Nebra Disk, the first time that I saw it, the one that was found in Germany, the first time that I saw it, I looked at it and thought, and they came out with that dating, that 3,000, 3,500-year-old dating right away. So they were able to date the disk. And I looked at it and I thought, how could it be possible? I mean, they certainly, 3,000 years ago, there were all kinds of civilizations that were looking at the stars and mapping things. I get that. But this was pretty accurate. And this was different from all other depictions we had all seen of the solar system. And it was obviously a message. And it was done in a way to preserve.
And here's my feeling. Let me kind of answer that for you. How are we doing on time?
We got 30 seconds to our break, and then 30 seconds to the break, and then we'll pick up right after that.
And we got one more half an hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. The disc. What I'm pretty sure. And by the way, I've decided after going over it and looking at it, the front of it and the back of it, and all kinds of other stuff. This was poured. This was during the Bronze Age, and they were making shields and things of that sort and knives by pouring bronze into molds.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that this was poured. Now, what happened, I think, is when it took place, when this thing went by and the stargazers back then, I think they probably drew it out maybe in dirt on the ground, or even on the wall of a cave, if you will, or scratched it into parchment paper with a piece of charcoal. In other words, they sat down, they looked up, they saw it, they said, oh my gosh, they marked all of the constellations and they drew them appropriately, drew a circle and showed it, et cetera, and even the edge of the riverbank where they were watching this from is indicated on the disc. And then sometimes later, it could even have been 30 days later, that they redid it and poured it and did this engraving and all in gold. Because it would take some time to make it. It's not like a photograph that was instantly done.
Right.
But they had logged down in some manner, whatever it was, scratching in the ground, right on a piece of chalk on a slate or whatever they did, and then copied it later. And it would have, and like I say, it could have been 2 weeks later or a month later that they finally did it. But the locations, when they ran the computer that just goes backward in time, it says, here it is, this matches up, and it was April, whatever it was, and I'll try to look that up while we go on break and give you the actual date.
Let's take that break right now. This is Fade to Black tonight. Bob Fletcher is with us. I do want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Doug Taylor, it will be an Atlantis evening here on Fade to Black. When we come back, we'll follow up with Nibiru, and I want to know what Mr. Fletcher is doing up in Idaho for his family's safety. We'll discuss that when we come back. Stay with us.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Bob Fletcher is with us. Fascinating discussion. Talking about Nibiru, Planet X, and its imminent return. Bob, I had said right before the break, what is it that you're doing to prepare for this?
Well, of course, I'm an old guy, and getting older by the minute, I think. But I'm an old man, and myself personally, I could care less. And I've had this fantastic life, and I'm not worried about it one way or another. If I make it through, fine. Of course, I live I have a big problem. Where I live, I'm like between St. Helens and the Washington, the huge volcanic activity over there, and then Yellowstone to the other side, so east and west. And by the way, if Yellowstone goes, it's all over anyhow, even if it's with or without Nibiru. And that thing's been acting up for a couple of years. So,
yes, it has.
I don't know. But I used to joke when somebody asked me about that previously, and I just said, well, I had taken yoga lessons so that I could bend over and kiss my own butt goodbye. And that's the best I can do. Where I'm living is not the best place in the world, but it's beautiful, so I could care less. And I'm supposed to be retired, but I keep working and working. Retired doesn't sound. I'm 75, and I've had 2-3 attempts to kill me, and then since then, I've had a couple of heart attacks and 1 stroke and whatever. So
let me flip this over. Let's flip it over 180 degrees. Could Nibiru and the appearance of Nibiru be a way to institute a new world order and take control of the globe and use it as an immense fear porn propaganda false flag scenario?
Well, I guess my feeling is that they're going to do it and do the martial law and all that stuff before it happens anyhow. Now, that's just so that they can get out of town, without being interrupted. Basically, that's my feeling on it, and that they're going to want to get everything that they don't already have down underground. They got all our money and every other thing. So, this would be really catastrophic. We're talking an unknown period of years before anything is anything again. If something like this happens, their dead positive was probably just a single meteor 6 miles across that wiped out everything for 1,000 years when the dinosaurs were crawling around, and they're pretty sure that just took one single really big rock, and that was the end of that for a long period of time. Small numbers of people survived and came out from under the ground and from their caves and regenerated Earth again,
One of the things that I wanted to bring up when we talk about amateur astronomers and their ability to find things, we just had this asteroid, the closest flyby, this past Halloween, and we didn't find that until 2 weeks before it flew by on Halloween. We had no clue, and it was traveling at 78,000 miles per hour.
Right, and see that's the problem. It doesn't, and of course, see, here's what you have to say though. When you say we didn't see it, who are you referring to? In other words, the people that are in control of the good telescopes, okay, the ones that are way the heck out there, and also are infrared with the capability to see things, whether they have any light reflecting on them at all or not.
Right.
And that's a big problem. This is considered to be an infrared item. And by the way, in just the last year, they've discovered as many as 20 planets that they didn't even know were out there, here, there, and everywhere. So, and a bulk of them fall in the infrared category that just don't put off their own illumination, and therefore you just can't see them unless they happen to be passing near something else and reflecting off of some other body up there. So, and space is so extraordinarily dense and convoluted, and so many. Somebody, like I said earlier, and somebody said, "Well, what direction do I look?" Like for what 7 minutes are you talking? Everything is moving all the time. And the only reason you see something that's way up there and you see it on a regular basis, like the moon, the only reason is because of the movement is such that it's on a regular path, and there it is right there, and it's huge, reflecting off of our sun.
Right.
And that's the only reason you see it. If there was no sun, you wouldn't see the moon. It'd be pitch black. End of story. You never see it. So anyhow, it kind of gets into the movement and all that, and the locations of things is spooky. But the point is that I was going to make, and when you said they didn't even see it coming, those guys that have the eyes out there in the skies, up there with that big old giant fantastic unknown numbers of satellites with telescopes on them. We have no idea. We have no idea how good they're able to see things. And they are not telling you anything. The people at NASA keep everything quiet that they're supposed to keep quiet. They don't even, the bottom line is you get what they tell you. I mean, they don't. The news people, they don't know anything. What do they know, for crying out loud? I've been interviewed by every major network on the globe, I guess, at one point in time for one thing or another. And it would scare you if you knew how stupid some of these people are. So as far as the media is concerned, they don't get anything. And the only thing they get is what's released, the above secret and the what they call galactic secret level. It's mind-boggling. There's 13 or 14 levels of secrecy above the president.
Sure, there has to be.
That's right. Logically, there has to be. And another thing, like with the senators and congressmen, it's only a few of them that have really top secret clearances. They don't know what's going on. I know for a period of time, and including up through tonight, that I know more about things than almost every single congressman and senator in Washington when it comes to top secret operations, et cetera.
Well,
they don't know nothing, and so you're not going to get anything from them. Everybody say, "Oh, right, my congressman."
Right.
He does. He doesn't. God bless him if he even knows that he's got a mailbox. And in terms of those guys, see, if they're not totally cooperative with the highest level of one world, new world order, upper echelon elite, if they're not cooperating with them, they are dead on the slopes of the ski resort with Sonny Bono.
Right.
They kill them if they're a problem. If they have to kill them because they won't shut up, they do it. Otherwise, they spend so much money in the next election coming in that the guy never gets reelected. Ever, never. So you're either corrupted or you're one lucky son of a gun. Or they just move you. They take a good, sharp congressman or senator that really cares about the country and cares about his people and starts causing some trouble when he gets up there, starts asking too many questions about covert and secret operations, starts asking about why is it the moon is set up out there where we only see one side of it for the last 50 million years. Coincidental?
Exactly.
We only see one side of the moon because it's exactly in the right location so that its rotation and our rotation for a million years is such that it spins around and it's always the same.
Well, and you said something extraordinary a minute ago when you said, I know more about secret things than anybody in Congress. And that statement is profound because they had to come to you so you would testify to get information out of you. And that is the end of that's the end of that statement.
I'll tell you what. Let me tell you a wonderful thing. I was supplying, during the Iran-Contra stuff and everything, as I said, I had my hands on paperwork that a few people had in the world, and I was one of them. And I went in and I sat down with the chief counsel for the House Foreign Affairs Committee, who had just wrapped up the Iran-Contra hearings. He was involved with it. And I sat down with him and I said, and I had come up from Atlanta, and I said, or Orlando, wherever it was at that time, and I said, I got some papers I want to show you. And he says, what is it? And I said, this is what came out of Ali Noor's safe. And he looked at me, and he said, what? And I said, this is the stuff that came out of Ali Noor's safe, and also his personal notebook. There was a little spiral pad that he put up in his vest pocket that he wrote notes on a daily basis. And I said, you guys had it, and I saw what you guys had, but yours was all just black ink. It was all redacted. Everything was blacked out with a marker. I said, you couldn't read anything but the date, the name of the guy that sent it, and the bottom line and a signature. Maybe. Sometimes you didn't even have that.
Right.
I said, it's all blacked out. And you'd have, the only words you could read it was tomorrow, south, north side, coming. You know, I mean, what is that? So anyhow, I gave it to him, and I'm talking about an inch of papers. And he scanned. I said, the best stuff is on the top. I said, like where Ollie North wrote on his personal notebook pad, supply aircraft to move 1,500 kilos of mash.
Right. You told him, seriously, the best stuff is on the top.
You know? And yeah, anyhow, and he went down and he went over that and he said, we have never seen this. You're a toy maker. Where did you get this from? I said, well, I'm not a toy maker anymore. I was a toy maker. The joke was I was Ollie North's toy company. You know, that and the word through the CIA was never approach a toy maker.
Bob,
never recruit.
Yeah, anybody that's dealing with fuzzy toys.
Right, don't recruit the toy makers. That was the thing in the halls of the Central Intelligence. Anyhow, he said he almost fell off his chair. He said, "Oh my God, I don't even believe this." You know, and I said, "Now I'm leaving this with you."
Well,
what?
Yeah.
And I said, so what? And he said, well, you're right. You know, I can't do anything with it.
Exactly.
See?
Hey, Bob.
And he was chief counsel of the House Foreign Affairs.
Before we wrap things up, I got a couple of questions I just need to get some quick answers on. Number one, the footage that you have on the DVD of the inside of the underground facilities, where did you get those Where did you get those videos?
Different places.
Fair enough.
You got another question?
Yeah, fair enough. Have you ever had a UFO experience? Have you ever seen anything in the skies that you can't explain?
No, I hadn't. Well, yes, I did. I got to correct myself. When I was 10, and my family saw a thing flying across the sky. This was in New Jersey, and we were surprised and watched it, didn't know what it was, just a light, and went across. And the next day, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, had, 150 calls on it, and that's that. But that's the experience, that's as far as that's concerned. Now, what I know about it today, relative to those things, I'm going to try and put that together, and it's going to that's part of some of what I'm talking about. It's very, very spooky. We have stuff so far beyond what people think. And it's funny because people say, "Oh, I know they got stuff that can really do this and they can really go fast." Trust me, you have no idea what these people have had and for how long they've had it. And I've said this for years, all the time. I've said this for years. And when they start talking about something, let's say it's an airplane or a weapon or whatever, in that category, or even maybe related to robots or maybe related to even germs and biologicals and things of that sort, and they say they're working on this and in 10 or 15 years it'll be flying, or it'll be doing this or be doing that, means they already have it, and it has been functioning probably for 10 years. They usually say 20 years up, it's going to be doing this or doing that. And when you hear that on any technological item, that actually means that they've already had it for 10 or 15 years, scooting around someplace or doing something.
Can't we use that technology to divert Nibiru and get it off of this trajectory?
Yes. And that's part of what I'm working on, and hopefully I can make that available pretty soon. Yes, yeah. The answer to that is yes.
I mean, I walk around.
But the question is, it has to go with it, and this is the very scary part of it, and that is, what else can it and has it been used for, and what has it and can it be used for?
Well, I
that's scary.
walk around with flowers hanging out of my pockets, okay? I'd like to think positive. And I know that there's something going on. You know there's something going on. We all do. We're lied to every single day. But I just have the feeling that we're going to be able to do something about it. There's some intervention that there may be 103 underground bases built just in case, and I would understand why that would be done. I do. I get it. I do.
Sure.
But,
sure. I mean, they get the money, and they did it. And their thing is, if we have to have it, we've got it, and we'll be the few that survive for some given period of time. And that's where they're rolling the dice, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I hope that we use this super technology, whatever it may be, whether it's anti-grav or some
You're
kind of...
You're going to be amazed. You will be amazed when you find out.
And we use it to divert. And not only Nibiru, but any other incoming, mass that would threaten the planet.
And that's part of the concept, But the bad part is... the bad part is how... And I'm going to use it. It's terminology, and it falls a little in the corny category. It's the evil in these people that are in the driver's seat, and they are completely in control of everything. Humanity is no longer in control of any part of their lives. And those that think they still are, I feel very badly, because it's a shame, and it's a shame that I would say that with a completely straight face.
Sure.
We are no longer in control of any part of our lives. And the evil that exists is shocking. And I'm going to use another term. I'm not disparaging anybody at all, but I'm not a Bible banger, okay? But I am telling you, it makes me ill that I now have a complete handle on the amount of evil that has permeated the leadership of the globe, not just America. It's heart-wrenching information. It's terrible.
Looking back, I meant to ask you this early on, and we've got about 2-3 minutes left, but I just got to get your comment on this. Bill Cooper was right, wasn't he?
About what part? I don't like Bill Cooper.
Well, no,
I'm going to tell you that. I never liked Bill Cooper. He exaggerated things, and he lied about something.
Yes, he did. But
so that's a problem.
Yeah, but his warnings about what was going on globally, and
in general, and basically, and I had several speaking engagements where we shared stage.
Sure.
I was on the road a tremendous amount back in the 90s before I was blown out of bed at night in 96. And crippled for the rest of my life. Basically, and putting it back into the simple terms, it's the one world, new world order, global control of a handful of demonic personalities that they already own everything anyhow. What is it? 2% of the people of the world that own 98% of everything.
That's right.
And those are real numbers, and that's a reality. But for some reason, they want it all. They wanted it 100%, and they want everybody to acknowledge that they are it. They own it, and they're running it. If you don't like it, you're gone.
Bob, I want to thank you for coming on. It was worth a couple of years, but thank you so much. And open invitation, and when you're ready to come back and you've got some we're going to have a follow-up, and again, I never thought I was going to do that, but I had to do it, and I certainly will go back, and it was a pleasure. I had a good time, and anybody that really wants to know the potential of what's going on, get the DVD, and we'll get it to you right away. Thank you so much, Bob. Sleep with one eye open, will you? I used to do that. I don't do it anymore. Both eyes get tired. Be safe up there and have a great, safe rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Bob Fletcher, everybody, and worked on that for a couple of years. He finally joined us tonight. And the thing is, and I want the audience to understand, there's one thing about Bob that we need to just wrap our mind around. Okay, he lived through everything that he said he has lived through. Okay, everything actually happened. The toy company, Iran-Contra, Ali Noor, all of the Senate hearings, the testimony, 1,500 depositions went down. He didn't participate in 1,500. That were all around him. The dark stuff coming in and out of his life, all of that happened, and it thrust him into a world that he didn't believe existed. And when we look at our world, our government, and the mass media and the way that it treats us, we have a choice. We can either jump on the treadmill every single day, go to work, get blind, watch our sports teams and watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians and have blinders on. Go status quo your life, pay your interest on the mortgage of your house, and just move forward and feed your family. That's fine. Okay? But you are oblivious to what's going on out there. And that was the world that he was in. The music business, toy manufacturing. And the next thing you know, he steps into a parallel universe, one that you see in movies, one that you hear about. And certainly the James Bond, the whole comparison is exactly right. And he got swept up and he was sucked into it. So when we listen to him speak, as fantastical and as out there and as crazy as it sounds, and it can be, you have to consider the source here. He has been to the edge and he took a peek into the darkness. He's been to places that you and I have no clue about. He broke through the floor and went to another level that none of us have experienced. Not one of us. So think about that. Bob Fletcher is an amazing, amazing individual. 75 years old and doing it. And that is that, and that is Fade to Black, and that is exactly why we do this show. Man, that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Bob Fletcher. Thank you for all you do, man. There's no question in my mind you've got your finger on the pulse, my brother. Thank you, Bob Fletcher. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, you are amazing. Bob is coming up, too, huh? You guys been watching Bob lately? He's quick on the trigger. Announcers are Steve Hodder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA, The Planet. Tomorrow night, right here, Douglas Taylor. Atlantis all night long. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.